Welcome to UO Today. I'm Steve Shankman, Director of the Oregon Humanities Center, and our guest is President Dave Frohnmeyer of the University of Oregon. Dave, it's always good to see you, always good to see you at the beginning of the year, and we're looking forward to all the good news you're going to give us.
Well, Steve, I hope the news is good. I feel that it is, and thank you and the Humanities Center and the University of Oregon for making this forum about the university available to a much wider audience. It's really a thrill to see this each week and what you're able to bring to our respective publics about the kinds of things that happen at the university. So thanks.
Well, you're very welcome. Now, one of the things that's happened recently is Billy Collins came and gave the address of the convocation. Give us some idea of what people had in mind when they invited Billy Collins and whether he delivered.
Well, convocation literally means coming together, and over the last several years, this has been a really increasingly important event for the university and the community because it begins the school year. All the freshman students are there, significant numbers of faculty, all the new faculty who are coming and being introduced are there. So it's a chance to showcase the university, involve the larger community in a formal kickoff of the year. And what better than to invite the former poet laureate of the United States, Billy Collins, whom many of the freshman students had read during the course of the summer as part of their introduction. So they knew something about the poet. Yes, he delivered. He's a witty man, I thought a very deep poet, and he is a born entertainer as well. He clearly knows how to keep an audience and have an audience that diverse, community, faculty, students, is testament to the fact that his message was powerful. And I shouldn't say a single message, it was messages. But it appealed to the intellectual life of the community. The poetry appeals to people's sense of what deep questions of life are and what learning are. And he did everything from admonish students not to use highlighters, but to write in margins and take issue with authors, not merely to slavishly underline what they've said, to more earthy advice about what it's like to live with ambiguity. And I felt it was entire success. His time on the podium went very quickly, even though it was nearly 50 minutes as an address. And a great way to begin the school year on what was an idyllic fall afternoon, as maybe only the University of Oregon and the Willamette Valley at this time of year can produce if we have our minds to it.
Well, congratulations on an inspired choice. And now to the students who attended. Tell us something about the new student body. I understand the SAT scores are up this year.
Well, the students, the SAT scores are about stable, but the students are a good, strong academic student body, more diversity than we've seen in a number of years, large numbers of students, of well-qualified students, well above the 3.25 minimum GPA that a student now needs. So it gives us a sense that more of the students are staying home instead of leaving for places outside of Oregon, which is one of our missions as a public university, is to be there for Oregon's best and brightest. They come in with good attitudes. I've already taught one class, one piece of one class that we teach on leadership for the students who come during their orientation period. Full of questions, not a bit hesitant to ask them, but respectful in their dealings with each other. It just gave me, Steve, a good feeling about the fact that here we are renewing ourselves each year. We had a large graduating class last June, but we have a large entering class now. So we're at or near the record enrollment level that we've had in the last several years, but still within our capacity to meet that enrollment. And for the first time in 40 years, we opened the doors on a new residence hall. And it is not only state-of-the-art, it really is a living learning center, the way we designed it. It has classrooms built in, seminar rooms, offices for professors to use when they come to that center. I intend to teach my seminar in winter term in one of the seminar rooms there because it's a statement about having the academic center of the university also be a place where people live and learn over a 24-hour cycle, not merely during the classroom part of it.
Do you want to let people know where it is in case they want to come and have a look at it?
Absolutely. In fact, our open house will be on November 4th when we have the official dedication. But it is right across the north side from the Bowerman building on Hayward Field. So if they come to that grand new entrance of Hayward Field and come up 15th Street toward the university, it's on their right. They can't miss it.
Where the tennis courts used to be?
Yeah, the tennis courts and the old outdoor racquetball courts. We've replaced them elsewhere on campus, and this is a place that's close to the academic heart of campus, but I think is going to be one of the premier living spaces in any university on the West Coast.
And how many students are living there?
About 400 students, most of them freshmen, so they'll have an exposure right away in their academic life. And I think a very good way to showcase the fact that we're still building, still learning, still making room for new people, new minds in new ways.
Now, we've just been talking about this wonderful new living situation. The State Board of Higher Education has authorized the sale of another end, the Westmoreland housing. You want to talk about how the Westmoreland situation is evolving?
Right. Actually, we think it's evolving very well. We, as of the time we're filming this this segment, Steve, we have closed on the final deal, which will net the university more than $17 million. It will still be used for accessible housing for students. The new landlords particularly want that to happen.
And that's the idea of Westmoreland is low income.
Well, not low income, and that's one of the problems with it is that it was low price, but we didn't use an income test for students. And so that's one of the reasons that it really outgrew its original purpose to be married student housing. More than half the students in it actually were not married students by the time we finally sold it. And we believed that we could upgrade our housing at the university generally, which is a major issue for us, only if we had working capital that would come from the sale of this particular asset. So we've dedicated at least as much money as the sale proceeds to renovating or building new facilities over a 10-year period, and we'll still have the capacity to purchase the former Romania property on Franklin Boulevard, the former Department of Transportation property. So we've consolidated the university's holdings closer to the central core of campus while still being able to proceed with providing up-to-date housing that we know our students want. And
what about you say over a 10-year period, what about during those 10 years of the students? And who were they serving exactly? You want to clarify for our audience the Westmoreland was serving?
Yeah, Westmoreland actually had very high vacancy rates ultimately. Was not serving, we thought, the low-income student. Clearly the price for the residence halls was relatively low, but we didn't use it as a means test. And so we basically vowed to do a financial aid approach rather than a housing approach to the students who are needy. And frankly, we're also helping those students who wanted to stay over in Westmoreland or to move back to it. Basically, their rents will be held level through June of 2008. So for the short period of time of this transition, there really shouldn't be any student who was needy, who was counting on paying that price, who's going to have to worry.
And again, on students, the issue of students, let's talk about tuition. Apparently, the debt load for students is rising. I think the average debt in 2006 for a U of O graduate was $18,000 and higher for others. I don't know how that compares with the national average and so on. What about tuition? Are you concerned about the price of tuition, or do you feel that we're fair and competitive in that area?
We're competitive, Steve, at the high end. The debt load of students graduating from the University of Oregon is slightly lower than the national average. That's not much consolation because the overall cost is rising for students. What that has meant for us is a twofold strategy, to be frank. Well, actually threefold. First, to try to make sure that the tuition level is kept, to some moderate increase. And this year, for the University of Oregon, it'll be about a 3% increase, which is actually below what most of our competitors do. Then we have a strategy of increasing financial aid. That's through the Oregon Opportunity Grant. The legislature has been much more helpful in this last session than it was in prior years. And frankly, the state board's budget will ask for much more in student financial assistance. So it targets those who are needy and helps through the Opportunity Grant to do more there. And finally, we're engaged on a major initiative as part of our Campaign Oregon, which is the largest fundraising drive for anything in the history of Oregon, to raise at least $100 million for scholarship assistance for students. And in that respect, we're at more than $61 million. So we are a substantial way along, nearly 2/3 of the way along to raising the student scholarship money. We need to do that, in my view. We're a public university with a public mission. My own parents were of the first generation of their families to get education at the collegiate level. They both went to the University of Oregon in or near the Depression, and both were able to graduate because they were able to afford college. And so that's a piece of my own family history that's probably relevant to my views, which are shared widely at the university, that we can't price ourselves out of the availability of the next generation of needy students to get the higher education that will allow them to be full participating citizens, not to be nickeled and dimed for the rest of their lives, and frankly to be able to be constructive citizens who will pay their own way in a society that's increasingly competitive worldwide.
So we're at the high end at the moment.
We are, well, we are, of course, much less than a private school.
Yes.
But a student's tuition here at the university is just north of $6,000, which is, pretty hard to swallow if you paid the prices that even a generation ago.
And out of state?
Out of state tuition is about 3 times that. And out of state students help to, they pay their own way, obviously, and probably help to subsidize the operations of the university for Oregon residents.
And international students, of course, pay the out-of-state rates.
Yeah.
And how do you recruit students from around the world when they're having to pay such high out-of-state rates for tuition?
2 reasons. One is the perceived quality of higher education in the United States, which by almost any account, and I've traveled and talked a lot with my counterparts overseas, education in the United States is regarded as the best in the world, bar none. We are the peer models for universities, and parents and young people around the world know that. Second, it's still a bargain in terms of what students will get when they come back to their home countries from a good education in the United States. And third's just a raw number. I mean, take countries in Asia. They can't build universities fast enough to take care of their burgeoning population and their middle classes. Think of this statistic because it will shock you. There are more middle-class students and families in China able to pay a University of Oregon tuition and costs than there are in the whole United States of America. So
that is extraordinary.
So the expansion of the Chinese middle class and upper middle class is a consequence of this explosive growth that they've had, together with the fact that China hasn't been able to build its universities fast enough, together with the fact that we still have the marquee reputation in the world's higher education community, means that we are a market for overseas students. And in those years right after 9/11, when the United States was perceived as being unfriendly because of our immigration restrictions and the visa and the security and so forth, we were losing our market to Canada, to Great Britain, to Australia, to New Zealand. But there's still a market for English-speaking education that's very strong and that I expect will continue, and one in which we are regarded as a prestige institution.
Now, the State Board has proposed a 10-year plan to help revitalize the Oregon University system. I think a 25% increase in the budget. How sanguine are you that this is actually going to happen?
Well, they've formed the budget, but they've done it on the basis of what they believe the university system needs if we're going to build back, as opposed to having cut back through this terrible period of salary freezes, or even the worst period right after the dot-com bust when Oregon's economy was so difficult and when our income-dependent state government was so financially strapped. We know that we want to be something better than 48th in the nation in the support of higher education. We'd like to be at least above the bottom 10%. And when you think about it, that isn't even aspirational, but it at least is a statement that we can do better for the next generation than the course on which we were engaged. So $920 million for a higher education budget for 7 institutions, quite modest. Yes, it is a 25% increase. Will the governor put that in the governor's budget? We hope so. And I hope that the listeners to this program will recognize that this is something that hasn't yet been decided by the executive branch. So whoever wins the election, we hope that that person will see higher education as one of the key assets that moves the state from really being threatened in terms of its economic future to one that has a brighter one. And this is part of the Board of Higher Education strategy.
So in terms of our support from the state, we're at 48 now?
Well, we are certainly in the bottom 10 states in terms of support for higher education on a per capita basis, and we can just do better than that.
That certainly should be the case. Again, on a gloomier note, propositions 41 or measures 41 and 48. Do you want to just put the warning signs out there for people?
Well, without electioneering, I want to just state some stark facts, and that is that if measures 48 and 41 were to pass, we would see a very different landscape for higher education and public services generally. A very much more impoverished one that would be slashed very quickly because Measure 48 would actually require a $2 billion cut in the state budget between January and June, quite apart from what would happen in the next biennium after that. And I don't think voters are yet sufficiently aware that these aren't minor measures that are tinkering. Measure 48 is a Colorado clone, basically, with some variations. But Colorado fell 13 percentage points in terms of its standing in the overall states. It's now 48th in funding for higher education. We think of Colorado as being a highly educated society with flagship institutions. But let me tell you, their budgets were slashed to the bone, and their capacity to continue to thrive in Colorado was so imperiled that even a conservative governor in Colorado led a successful effort at the polls to suspend that measure that now out-of-state money is trying to tell us in Oregon that we should adopt. So I certainly hope that voters inform themselves on 48. 41 does things with the income tax that seem quite innocuous and maybe might help voters, but I again urge them to look at the level of the cuts that would be in K through 12 education, health care, higher education, state police, all of the things that we depend on this in the state's general fund. These are really quite extraordinary and I think unexpected. Every so often we get a seismic shock like Measure 5 back in 1990. But this
or a seismoric shocker.
But this one might even dwarf the impact of that.
Oh my goodness!
So it's time to be, to ring the alarm, to say, read carefully and think thoughtfully.
Well, what's your sense of it? What's your sense of the probabilities on this?
Well,
I know you don't want to predict. You don't want to predict things.
Well, I don't want to predict.
Everything is dangerous if it's on there on the ballot.
Yeah, but this is a case, at least in the case of Measure 48, where business, labor, education professionals, people who care about the future of healthcare, have looked at it, and there's a huge coalition that said, this is way too much. It failed in Colorado. Why should we impose this on the people of Oregon in search of something that's a will-o'-the-wisp? So my hope is that in 41 will be looked at very carefully, and certainly I think in 48 the trend line's right. 41's pretty close.
So let's go on to the positive side of funding. You talked a little bit about the fundraising campaign, Transforming Lives. You want to let us know about how it's going, if recent gifts?
Well, yeah, the recent gifts have been exciting, thrilling even. The Campaign Oregon is designed, of course, to raise $600 million for all aspects of the University of Oregon to make it a better place, to make it a 21st century institution, continuing to be on the cutting edge of what we call AAU institutions, those 63 premier institutions that are among the nation's very finest. We're at $430 million right now. That's without funding for an arena project, which is in this. And even if that is delayed, and it appears that it will be, I have every confidence that our trajectory is right. It's brought us the groundbreaking for an integrative science building where some of the world's most exotic and important nanoscience research is being done, where we'll have new capacity to continue our pioneering efforts in green chemistry. We'll break ground for the School of Music in just a few days, really, in early November.
And where is that going to be?
The School of Music will be located on 18th Street, where the School of Music is. But it will about basically double the functional size of the building. Much overdue, and really a sort of a marquee building that's been made available by some extraordinary generosity. Our College of Education, which routinely is number 1, number 2, or number 3 in the nation, depending on the index you use to measure its effectiveness, is very close to finishing its fundraising drive, thanks to some magnificent gifts that had come. And so that will be a very nearly $50 million building, and we'll break ground on that in coming months. So we have the sense that progress is being made. It warms the president's heart to see building cranes on campus, and we'll see them in 2 or 3 locations in the next month. And that should give people a sense that we're not sitting on our laurels, that we are using private philanthropy, leveraging through state bonding authority or other assistance in order to make sure that we are the premier place for people to research, to study, to discover new knowledge, to be a university that affects our larger world in positive ways.
Now, you've also been active on the international front, and we've got programs as the Engaging China program. You want to tell us something about that? And also Mandarin Chinese suddenly is being offered at, is it in the honors college? There's a new program to try to offer, I think, more classes in Mandarin?
Yeah, actually, we are the pilot program of the entire United States. We've received the first federal grant designed to focus on the study of Mandarin Chinese from the first grade on. So included in this overall effort are the Portland Public Schools, who begin teaching in the first grade, but also the University of Oregon because of the excellence of our East Asian languages program. We will be getting more than $1 million a year for the next years in order to pursue this, as I say, really pilot. It's more than a pilot program. We are the first one to be granted these funds based on the excellence of what we already have and what we're capable of doing. And this shows a continuing effort on our part to look across the Pacific to our Asian counterparts, not merely China, although that's a big player because it's a quarter of the world's population. But we have important new connections in Thailand, important new connections in Korea, Japan. I'm going to leave out countries and I hope not insult them by omission, but we have just an enormous amount of faculty and student effort, which we've helped to sharpen our focus on by the development of a strategic white paper on what we intend to do in East Asia over the next 10 years. It's ambitious, but we're already beginning to see the footprints of these new efforts, and they're really quite exciting to see because they engage our faculty, they bring in new dollars, they bring in new and different kinds of students, and they still play to our strengths in this entire growing area of Pacific Rim activity over the next 10 years.
I just want to clarify something you said. You said that the classes begin in the first grade. So how are U of O faculty involved? Or are we sending teachers out into the schools, and how many classes are there going to be, say, in Eugene, for example, as a result of this initiative?
Well, actually, we are going to be hopefully at the receiving end of all these students as they go through the Portland Public School program. They've been doing this though for a number of years, so we are getting, I've forgotten the number, Steve, between 10 and 20 students who are engaged in this very high level of expertise with Chinese language and literature that is regarded by our State Department and by private industry as well as academics as being a tremendously important initiative.
The Portland Center. What's been going on with the Portland Center?
Well, fantastic new opportunities in Portland. It is the state's largest population center. It's the source of most of our students. The largest number of our alumni live there. It's the source of our significant part of the philanthropic activity, and it's a major portal to the rest of the world internationally. And we have agreed to occupy the White Stag building, the famous landmark building with the White Stag and the Made in Oregon sign and so forth, which is being refurbished under the most exquisitely sensitive historic preservation effort. And that will be the home of about 16 different University of Oregon programs for which we've rented different space in different parts of Portland up to this time. So it consolidates us in a flagship location. It makes a statement about University of Oregon, Portland. It's a place where there's be more parking, there's better access from mass transit. It's a marquee place right on the waterfront or the riverfront in Portland. And when we open its doors, probably in about 16 to 18 months from now, I think it's going to be a real statement about the fact that we are the University of all of Oregon, and not merely a great state university, but placed up the Willamette River at a great place called Eugene. So it's a way of strengthening our efforts. Architecture, law, journalism will be three of the major players, but I expect that education, the Duck Athletic Fund, many philanthropic and alumni activities will be centered here. And it'll be a center where there'll be public space so that we can be part of this very vibrant life of rehabilitated Portland. It's one of the exciting places for young people to be, really in the whole United States, maybe the world right now.
I'd like to turn our attention to sports a bit now. After 25 years, the university is on the national map for the NCAA again, and I understand that March Madness, the basketball, NCAA basketball championships are coming to Oregon 2009. In 2010, the outdoor track and field championships are going to be held here. What's happened? How did this?
Well,
how did these things,
yeah, Oregon's come into its own. We own great parts of the legends of track and field. We were the first in 1939 NCAA basketball champion. The only thing that you left out of your list, Steve, is the 2008 Olympic
2008.
trials.
That's my next question.
And that's going to be a wonderful way to showcase not merely the University of Oregon, although we intend it to be a showcase for all the things we do, but obviously the Eugene, Springfield, and associated region. This will really be a marquee set of events. But the basketball events that you referred to are a longer-term statement about our intention to be visible and frankly the attractiveness that the rest of the nation sees in the Pacific Northwest. So we're proud to be a piece of that.
So speaking of basketball, and you touched on it earlier, the status of the new basketball arena, where are we with that?
Well, we still have yet to match design with philanthropic capacity or interest, so we're juggling with that. We do have the site, which would be on the former Williams Bakery property. That bakery is very nearly moved to a new location, and I think strategically it's important to have that property irrespective of what happens. We've just received more than seed money, a very generous gift from Cheryl and the Ford family, Alan Ford of Roseburg, to help us build an alumni center, which would be a grand entrance to the university on our Agate and Franklin area. So we're beginning to see how the future development and direction of the campus can be brought back to the academic heart of the campus, as I think Ellis Lawrence, the original architect nearly a century ago, might have envisioned.
So you're taking your time with this and making sure that it's going to be right when it happens.
Well, it has to be right when it happens, because once you build a facility like that, you better be willing to and eager to live with it for 3/4 of a century. If you think about it, that's it's already longer than that Mac Court has been around, and that's a little bit like the grand old car that you have. That's the first one. There's finally 400,000 miles on it. You keep adding oil and fresh paint. Sooner or later, you're going to need something new. But if and when we build an arena, we want to make sure that it's a statement about the university and the community. That's a doorway to the community that's done in the right way so that it serves all of the university and, for that matter, our community as well.
Well, I'm afraid we don't even have enough nanoseconds to talk about nanotechnology, but we do have about 30 seconds left. You want to say something about the federal funding of UO research in the area of nanotechnology?
Well, nanotechnology, which is the science of very small things, is something in which we excel. Our people in chemistry are making products that are cleaner, better, faster. We're discovering things about the behavior of particles that are tremendously important in everything from medicine to engineering. And much of that's being done in collaboration with Oregon State, Portland State, and the federal laboratory in Washington across the river. Very exciting because we're such a major piece of that. We've just gotten news that maybe between 11 and $18 million of federal funding is going to come in significant part to projects like that. We record fundraiser this last year from competitive federal grants and grants from the Congress. So we feel that our trajectory is still not only increasing, but compared to our competitors, really showing the eminence of researchers at the University of Oregon. And we're obviously very proud of them.
Well, thank you for that nano response to that nano question. It's always good to talk to you, Dave. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Steve, and again, best of luck to all of us during this coming school year.
Thank you. And we've been speaking with Dave Frohnmeyer, President of the University of Oregon. Thanks for watching.